The Galactic Council had studied humans for 30 years. They had written thousands of reports about these strange creatures from the small blue planet. They had recorded their habits, their cultures, and their technologies. But there was one thing the Council never understood about humans. They never understood why humans refused to accept defeat. They never understood why humans kept fighting when all logic said they should surrender. Commander of the Empire learned this lesson in the most painful way possible. It happened in the year 2347, during the third month of the blockade of the Terran colony world called New Haven. They had brought 400 warships to surround the planet. They had positioned their fleet in a perfect sphere around New Haven. Nothing could enter. Nothing could leave. The mathematics were simple and absolute. Any ship trying to break through would face fire from at least 50 warships at once. They had calculated every angle, every possible escape route. They had closed every gap with mathematical precision. The colony was dying slowly. 3 million humans waited on the surface. They had food for maybe 2 more weeks. Medical supplies were already running out. Children were getting sick. Old people were dying. They did not care. They wanted the humans to surrender. They wanted the humans to give up their world and become servants of the Empire. But the humans had sent a message to Earth. Help was coming. They just needed to hold on a little longer. The relief fleet was still 2 weeks away. It would arrive too late. Everyone knew this. The Council observers watching from their neutral ships felt sorry for the humans. It was a terrible situation, but there was nothing anyone could do. Then the cargo ship appeared. It came out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. It was a small vessel called the Morning Star. It was old and tired. Its hull was covered with patches and repairs from 100 different journeys. It was not a military ship. It was just a simple cargo hauler carrying emergency supplies from the nearest Terran station. The pilot's name was Sarah. She was 42 years old. She had been flying cargo ships for 20 years. She had no military training. She had never fired a weapon in combat. She was just a delivery pilot who had volunteered for a dangerous mission. They detected her ship immediately. Commander smiled when he saw it on his display screen. One small cargo ship against 400 warships. It was not even worth his attention. He ordered his outer ships to destroy it and return to his meal. But Sarah had no intention of dying that day. She looked at the blockade on her scanner. She studied the positions of every enemy ship. She calculated the distances, the angles, the firing arcs. Her computer told her the same thing they had calculated. There was no way through. The mathematics were absolute. Any attempt to break through would result in destruction. Sarah turned off her computer's navigation system. She took manual control of her ship. Her hands gripped the control stick. Her eyes focused on the stars ahead, and she began to fly. The first ships opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through space toward her. Sarah did not try to dodge them in the normal way. Instead, she did something that made no logical sense. She flew directly toward the nearest cruiser. She accelerated to maximum speed and aimed straight at its hull. The gunners panicked. They had never seen anything like this. Their training told them that enemies tried to avoid ships, not fly toward them. They kept firing, but their shots went wide. They could not adjust to her insane approach. At the last possible second, Sarah pulled up. Her ship scraped along the top of the cruiser so close that her hull actually touched its armor. They could not fire at her. She was too close. Their own weapons would damage their own ship. She used the cruiser as a shield. She flew along its length, staying just meters above its surface. Other ships tried to hit her, but they hit their own cruiser instead. Explosions erupted across the vessel. Its shields failed. Its hull cracked open. Sarah shot off the end of the dying cruiser and dove toward the next gap in the blockade. Commander dropped his meal. He stared at his display in shock. One small cargo ship had just destroyed one of his cruisers without firing a single shot. He grabbed his communicator and screamed orders at his fleet. But Sarah was already gone. She flew into an asteroid field that they had been using as a natural barrier. Her ship twisted and spun between the rocks. She used the asteroids as cover, as weapons, as shields. She bounced off smaller rocks to change her direction unpredictably. Her ship took damage. Warning lights flashed across her control panel. Her hull was cracking. Her engines were overheating, but she kept flying. The sent fighters after her. 20 small attack ships chased her through the asteroid field. They were faster than her cargo ship. They were more maneuverable. They should have caught her easily. Sarah led them into the densest part of the field. She flew through gaps that should have been too small for her ship. She scraped through openings that existed for only seconds before closing. The fighters tried to follow. They crashed into asteroids one by one. Their pilots were good, but they were not insane. They were not willing to risk certain death for a chance at glory. Only 5 fighters made it through the field. They emerged on the other side and found Sarah waiting for them. Her ship was damaged badly now. Smoke poured from her engines. One of her wings was bent at a strange angle. Her shields were completely gone, but she was still flying. She turned and flew straight at the fighters. Again, she did something impossible. She did not try to escape. She attacked. Her cargo ship had no weapons, but it did have a cargo bay full of emergency supplies. Sarah opened the bay doors and released everything she had. Medical crates, food containers, water tanks, all of it flew out into space directly in front of the fighters. The fighters had no time to dodge. They flew straight into the cloud of debris. Their cockpits shattered. Their engines exploded. All 5 fighters were destroyed by boxes of medicine and containers of food. Commander was now standing. His hands were shaking. He had commanded fleets for 50 years. He had never seen anything like this human pilot. She was not following any tactics he recognized. She was not using any strategy from any military textbook. She was just refusing to die. The main blockade was still ahead. 200 warships waited in a solid wall of steel and fire. There was no trick that could get through that. There was no clever maneuver that could save her now. Sarah looked at the wall of ships. Her engines were failing. Her life support was damaged. She had maybe 10 minutes of air left. Her ship could barely fly straight anymore. Everything told her to give up. Everything told her she had done enough. She had tried. No one would blame her for surrendering now. She thought about the 3 million people on New Haven. She thought about the children who were sick. She thought about the families waiting for help. She thought about what it meant to be human. She pushed her engines to full power. The Morning Star shot forward one last time. It flew toward the smallest gap in the blockade line. The gap was too small. Any computer would have said it was impossible. Any logical being would have turned away. Sarah flew straight into it. Her ship began to break apart around her. Plasma bolts hit her hull from every direction. Pieces of her ship flew off into space. Fire erupted in her cargo bay. Her cockpit cracked. Air began to escape. But she was through. She had made it past the blockade. She was inside the defensive sphere. New Haven was ahead of her. Her ship was dying. She had no engines left. She was falling now, not flying. But she was falling toward the planet. Gravity would do the rest. Commander watched his display in silence. The small cargo ship tumbled through space toward New Haven. It was leaving a trail of debris and smoke. It was clearly destroyed, but it was going to reach the surface. The supplies would be delivered. 3 million humans would survive a little longer. The relief fleet would arrive in time. Sarah did not survive the crash. Her ship hit the surface of New Haven hard. The impact killed her instantly. But the cargo bay held together just enough. The supplies scattered across the crash site. Rescue teams found medicine, food, and water, enough to keep the colony alive for 3 more weeks. The Terran relief fleet arrived 12 days later. They broke through the blockade with overwhelming force. Commander retreated. His empire abandoned its claim to New Haven. The humans had won. The Galactic Council added a new entry to their reports about humans. They wrote about Sarah. They wrote about her impossible flight through the blockade. They analyzed her maneuvers for years. They never figured out how she had done it. Their computers said it was impossible. The mathematics were absolute. No pilot could have made those maneuvers. No ship could have survived that flight. But Sarah had not cared about mathematics. She had not cared about what was possible or impossible. She had only cared about the people she was trying to save. The Council finally understood something about humans that day. They understood that humans did not accept the rules of the universe. They understood that humans fought against fate itself. They understood that humans were dangerous not because of their weapons or their ships, but because of their hearts. A statue of Sarah stands on New Haven today. It shows her at the controls of her ship, her hands on the stick, her eyes focused ahead. The inscription reads, "She flew when she could not fly. She lived when she should have died. She saved us when all hope was lost." Every year, on the anniversary of her flight, pilots from across the galaxy come to New Haven. They stand before her statue and lower their heads in respect. Pilots come too. They come to honor the human who taught them that courage has no mathematics. They come to remember that some things are more important than survival. The story of Sarah spread to every corner of the galaxy. It became a legend. It became a warning. It told every species in the universe a simple truth about humans. Never tell them something is impossible. They will only prove you wrong.